1. Differentiate what you can and cannot control. In Stoicism, the idea of differentiating between what you can and cannot control is a fundamental principle for achieving tranquility and inner peace. This perspective is primarily based on the teachings of Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, and Seneca, who emphasized the importance of focusing only on what is within our control and accepting what is not. What you can control, according to the Stoics, the only things you can control are your own actions, thoughts, emotions, and attitudes. This includes your responses and reactions. You can choose how to react to situations, whether they are good or bad. Your thoughts. You can work to cultivate rational and positive thinking, regardless of external circumstances. Your actions. Your decisions and behaviors are under your control. You can act with virtue, seek wisdom, and practice justice, courage, and self-discipline. Your character and virtue. Stoicism values the development of character and the pursuit of moral excellence. This is a choice each person can make, regardless of external circumstances. What you cannot control. On the other hand, the Stoics remind us that there are many things that are beyond our control, such as the actions and thoughts of others. You cannot control what other people do, say, or think. External events and circumstances. Situations such as weather, natural disasters, wars, and other crises are beyond your direct influence. The outcomes of your actions. You can do your best on a task, but you cannot fully control the result. Success or failure is subject to external factors that you cannot predict or influence. The past and the future. The past has already happened and cannot be changed, and the future is uncertain, so it is not worth spending energy worrying about it. Applying this principle to achieve inner peace, the Stoics believe that human suffering often arises from the struggle to control things that are not within our power. For example, if someone worries about changing other people's opinions or tries to control events beyond their capability, this leads to frustration and suffering. Instead, the Stoics teach that we should focus on what we can control and accept with serenity what we cannot. Epictetus, in particular, highlighted this distinction in his work Enchiridion, the Handbook, where he states that happiness does not depend on external factors but on our ability to maintain an appropriate attitude in the face of adversity. His famous quote, "It is not things that disturb us, but our opinions about them," illustrates this philosophy well. Marcus Aurelius, in Meditations, also writes about the importance of focusing on the present and our own behavior, stating that we should act with due diligence and uprightness, and accept what comes as a gift from fate. Daily reflection. Take time to reflect on the day's situations and ask yourself, what could I control in this situation and what was beyond my control? Active acceptance. When facing a challenge, try to discern whether the situation is something you can change or if you need to accept it as it is. Visualization exercises. The Stoics suggested practicing premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils, where you imagine the worst possible situations to learn to face them without fear. This helps cultivate acceptance of what cannot be changed. Purposeful action. Focus on doing your best, regardless of the results, and accept that total control is an illusion. Stoicism teaches that by understanding and applying this distinction between what we can and cannot control, we can cultivate a calm and resilient mind. True freedom and happiness come from focusing only on what is within our domain and embracing the rest with acceptance and calm. 2. Accept what cannot be changed. The phrase "accept what cannot be changed" is one of the fundamental principles of Stoicism, a philosophy that originated in ancient Greece and has had a significant impact on historical figures and subsequent philosophical thoughts. Stoics, such as Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius, taught that the key to a good and peaceful life lies in focusing only on what we can control and accepting with serenity what is beyond our control. Fundamentals of Stoicism. Stoicism holds that happiness does not depend on external factors or unpredictable events, but on how we react to them. This view is encapsulated in the famous Stoic triad: what I can control, what I cannot control, and the difference between the two. According to the Stoics, we should only concern ourselves with what is in our hands and accept what we cannot change. Acceptance and serenity. When talking about accepting what cannot be changed, the Stoics emphasize that this does not mean passivity or resignation. Instead, it is a form of inner freedom. Accepting what we cannot control frees us from frustration and unnecessary suffering. Rather than fighting against what already is, acceptance allows us to react more rationally and with more peace of mind. Epictetus, one of the most well-known Stoic philosophers, exemplified this principle in his teachings. He said that we should not be shaken by events beyond our control, such as the behavior of other people, life circumstances, or natural elements. What truly matters is our attitude in the face of these situations. He wrote, "It is not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them." Applying the principle in daily life. Applying this principle can be challenging, as we are often inclined to try to control the uncontrollable, such as the future, others' decisions, or the unpredictable nature of life. However, the Stoics encourage us to practice acceptance consciously. Daily reflection. At the end of the day, reflect on what happened and assess what was under our control and what was not. This helps develop the ability to discern and accept more easily. Gratitude practice. Gratitude for what is within our control and for all that we still have can help cultivate a peaceful mind. Preparation for adversity. The practice of premeditatio malorum, preparing for the worst, is a Stoic technique that involves imagining adverse scenarios and how to respond to them appropriately. This technique is not meant to fuel fear, but to be prepared and accept whatever comes with greater serenity. The wisdom of Stoicism in modern life. The principle of accepting what cannot be changed remains relevant today, especially in a world that often seems unpredictable and chaotic. In practice, this means that in situations of stress, failure, loss, and difficulties, rather than resisting forcefully or despairing, we should seek calm and understand that our true power lies in how we respond to these situations. Adopting this perspective can be a path to emotional well-being, promoting a sense of balance and internal control that is not affected by external events. For example, in crisis situations, such as an unexpected career change, the loss of a loved one, or even daily challenges, acceptance allows us to recognize what is beyond our control and find ways to move forward more resiliently. Stoicism teaches that accepting what cannot be changed is a practice of freedom and wisdom. By accepting the uncontrollable, you free yourself from anxiety, suffering, and frustration, focusing on improving your reactions and attitudes. This approach fosters a more peaceful life, where adversities are faced with a serene and rational spirit, allowing inner peace to prevail regardless of external circumstances. 3. Value the present. The teaching value the present is central to Stoic philosophy, which emphasizes the importance of living according to reason and cultivating virtue, seeking inner peace and wisdom. The idea of valuing the present moment is related to the understanding that it is the only real time in which we have control and influence. The past is gone, and the future has not yet arrived. Therefore, focusing on the present is a way to live more fully and avoid unnecessary suffering. Stoics, such as Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius, believe that the human mind tends to get lost in worries about the past and future, which takes us away from true happiness. Seneca, for example, wrote in his work on the shortness of life that life is not short, but we make it short, wasting time on useless things. This statement highlights how excessive concern with the past or anxiety about the future can make us miss the opportunity to live in the present. Although the concept of mindfulness was not invented by the Stoics, the practice of being present in the moment is an idea that aligns with Stoic philosophy. For the Stoics, the practice of mindfulness involves observing one's own thoughts, emotions, and actions in an objective and rational way. Epictetus, for instance, taught that we should focus on what is within our control, our actions, thoughts, and attitudes, and accept with serenity what is not, external events and the behavior of others. The Stoics saw life as impermanent and ever-changing, which led them to value the present. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, often reminded himself that everything is transient and that we should use this awareness to make the most of the moment. He wrote, "Life is like a river in constant flow, nothing stays the same, and everything transforms. Therefore, what matters is what you do in this moment." The Stoics believed that the actions performed in the present shape the future. Therefore, the best way to prepare for a desirable future is to act rationally and virtuously now. Epictetus said, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." In other words, instead of worrying about what might happen or lamenting what has already happened, we should focus our energy on acting rightly in the current moment. Daily reflection. Marcus Aurelius recommended that people reflect daily on how they lived and how they could improve. This practice of self-analysis helps maintain focus on what is important and fosters a sense of purpose. Appreciation for what you have. Gratitude is an essential practice for the Stoics. Seneca advised recognizing and valuing the good things in life, no matter how small. By doing this, we cultivate a state of contentment and acknowledgement of the present. Memento mori. This is a Latin phrase that means remember that you will die. The Stoics used this idea to remind themselves that life is finite and that we should make the most of the time we have now, without wasting time on unnecessary worries. Stoic philosophy teaches us that the value of the present lies in how we choose to live now. Living in the present moment does not mean ignoring the lessons of the past or the responsibilities of the future, but rather making the best use of the moment we have. The practice of Stoic wisdom involves accepting the impermanent nature of life, acting in accordance with reason and virtue, and recognizing that the only time we have power is now. With this, we can develop inner peace and a more fulfilling life. 4. Use reason to deal with emotions. Stoic thought emphasizes the importance of using reason to guide emotions, recognizing that while we cannot control external events, we can control how we respond to them. This philosophy, developed by thinkers like Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius, believes that the rational mind is the most powerful tool for achieving virtue and inner peace. The distinction between what we can and cannot control. One of the fundamental principles of Stoicism is the distinction between what is within our control and what is not. Emotions often arise as automatic reactions to external events, but Stoicism teaches that, while we cannot prevent emotions from occurring, we have the power to choose how to respond to them. Reason allows us to filter emotions and decide the best way to act, rather than reacting impulsively. Reason helps to analyze and understand emotions, making them more manageable. Instead of being overwhelmed by feelings like anger, fear, or sadness, the Stoic uses reason to question whether these emotions are proportionate to the situation and whether they are helpful for inner peace. For example, if someone feels angry, reason can lead them to reflect, is this anger justified? Does it help in any way, or does it make the situation worse? This analysis can soften the intensity of the emotion and guide the individual to a more balanced and rational response. The Stoics aim to achieve a state of ataraxia, which is peace and tranquility of the mind. This is achieved through emotional control and acceptance of what is beyond our control. Reason helps maintain this tranquility by reminding us that what truly matters is our virtue and integrity, not the external circumstances that often provoke emotional reactions. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor and Stoic philosopher, left us many writings on how to use reason to deal with emotions. In Meditations, he advises us to reflect on how emotions can be unnecessary or harmful. He writes, "If you are disturbed by something external, the suffering does not come from the thing itself, but from your evaluation of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." For Marcus Aurelius, the key is to change the way we perceive and react to things. Exercises for using reason with emotions. Daily reflection. Take a few minutes at the end of the day to reflect on the emotions experienced and ask if the reaction was appropriate or could have been managed differently. Rational analysis. In moments of anger, sadness, or anxiety, pause and analyze the situation objectively. What is really happening? What can I control and what can I not control? Negative visualization. Premeditatio malorum practice anticipating possible difficulties or losses and preparing the mind to respond with calmness and rationality if they occur. For the Stoics, reason is closely linked to the pursuit of virtue, which is the highest good one can achieve. Emotions that lead us away from virtue, such as excessive pride, anger, or irrational fear, should be transformed by reason so that we can act with wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. The goal is to live in accordance with nature, where reason is seen as the essence of the human soul. Stoicism teaches that using reason to deal with emotions is essential for achieving tranquility and living a virtuous life. Instead of being swept away by uncontrollable emotions, the individual can become more aware, reflective, and capable of making reasoned decisions, regardless of external circumstances. 5. Practice indifference, apatheia. In Stoicism, indifference or apatheia is a fundamental concept referring to the ability to maintain a calm and unshakable mind, regardless of external circumstances. The term comes from ancient Greek and literally means without passion or without affection, but it is important to understand that apatheia does not refer to indifference or lack of empathy. Rather, it is a stance of serenity in the face of the emotional fluctuations life imposes on us. For the Stoics, the key to happiness and true freedom lies in learning to distinguish between what is within our control and what is not. According to Stoic philosophers, our emotional reactions are often triggered by external events, which are inherently unpredictable and uncontrollable. Instead of reacting impulsively, the ideal is to cultivate an attitude of apatheia, a state of mind where reason governs our actions, rather than irrational and fleeting emotions. Practicing apatheia, discernment between what is within our control and what is not, one of the most important teachings of Stoicism is to focus only on what we can control, such as our attitudes, thoughts, and choices. Everything else, such as others' opinions, natural events, or the actions of others, should be accepted with equanimity. Self-discipline and rationality. Practicing apatheia requires constant self-awareness and discipline to cultivate a rational mind. When a Stoic is faced with a situation that would typically provoke anger, sadness, or frustration, they must remember that the emotional reaction is a choice. At that moment, reason is used to reassess the situation objectively and calmly. Acceptance and active resignation. Apatheia is not passive resignation but an active acceptance of the nature of life. Instead of struggling against what cannot be changed, the Stoic understands that life is full of ups and downs, and accepting this is a way to live with greater harmony and peace of mind. Practice of meditation and reflection. Stoicism encourages the practice of daily meditation and reflection. A common tool is journaling, where an individual can reflect on their actions, feelings, and how they reacted to different situations. This helps strengthen the ability to observe one's emotions without identifying with them. Example of Stoic philosophers, figures such as Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius exemplified what it means to live with apatheia. Marcus Aurelius, for example, wrote in his meditations about accepting the impermanence of things and maintaining a serene mind, regardless of situations that might disturb others. Benefits of apatheia. Emotional freedom. By achieving apatheia, a person is liberated from the tyranny of uncontrolled emotions and finds a type of freedom that does not depend on external circumstances. Greater mental clarity. With fewer emotional distractions, it is possible to think more clearly and make wiser decisions. Inner peace. The practice of apatheia leads to a lasting state of tranquility, regardless of life's challenges. Important to know, apatheia is not a denial of emotions, but a state of not being dominated by them. It is the ability to observe emotions with a healthy distance, recognizing them as natural responses, but not allowing them to shape our actions uncontrollably. In summary, practicing indifference in Stoicism means finding peace and wisdom by accepting that the external world is unpredictable and often uncontrollable. True freedom lies in the capacity to respond to it with dignity and rationality, keeping the mind balanced and centered, regardless of external storms. 6. Visualize adversity, premeditatio malorum. Visualize adversity or premeditatio malorum is a central concept in Stoic philosophy, which emphasizes the importance of anticipating the challenges and adversities that may arise in our lives. The goal is to prepare the mind and spirit to face difficulties with courage, resilience, and acceptance. This principle teaches us to proactively reflect on potential problems before they occur so that, when they do arise, we are better equipped to deal with them. The term premeditatio malorum can be translated as forethought of evils and was particularly emphasized by Marcus Aurelius, one of the most well-known Stoic philosophers and Roman emperors. He believed that by imagining adverse scenarios, a person could develop a stronger state of mind that would be less likely to be shaken by difficulties. How is this applied in daily life? Mental preparation. Instead of being caught off guard by problems, the practice of premeditatio malorum involves visualizing difficulties before they happen. For example, if you are about to give an important presentation, you can imagine possible obstacles such as technical issues or difficult questions from the audience. This way, when something does go wrong, you will already be prepared to respond calmly and rationally. Detachment and acceptance. Stoicism teaches that we should not become attached to the outcomes of situations, but rather focus on our own attitudes and actions. Visualizing adversities helps us understand that even if something negative happens, it is not a reason for despair or anger. Instead, we should accept reality as it is and work with it as best as we can. Appreciating what we have. This practice also reminds us to value what we have in the present moment. When we imagine problems that could arise, we acknowledge the luck we have in certain aspects of life and become less likely to complain or feel dissatisfied. Examples in Stoic philosophy. Seneca, another Stoic philosopher, wrote extensively about this practice in his letters, particularly in Letter 23, where he discusses how reflecting on suffering can help us maintain perspective. He says we should imagine the worst-case scenarios so that when they happen, we can deal with them calmly, recognizing that we have already mentally prepared for them. Epictetus, one of the main Stoic philosophers, taught that the mind should be trained to differentiate between what is within our control and what is not. Visualizing adversity reinforces this idea, as the anticipation of problems is not meant to make them real but to strengthen the mind and develop self-control. Benefits of premeditatio malorum. Less stress and anxiety. By mentally preparing for challenges, the anticipation of difficulties makes these events less intimidating when they actually occur. Increased resilience. The practice helps strengthen the mind, making it more capable of handling whatever life brings, no matter how daunting it may initially seem. Clarity and focus. By imagining problems, you can identify what truly matters and learn to focus on solutions instead of getting lost in worries. The practice of premeditatio malorum is a powerful tool for cultivating a Stoic mind. By anticipating difficulties, we demystify them and become better prepared to face them with courage and wisdom, always maintaining inner peace and a realistic perspective on life. 7. Live with simplicity and frugality. The maxim "live with simplicity and frugality" reflects one of the fundamental principles of Stoicism, a philosophy that originated in ancient Greece and spread throughout the Roman Empire over time. Stoicism, taught by philosophers such as Zeno of Citium, Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius, emphasizes control over one's emotions and acceptance of what cannot be controlled. It advocates the pursuit of virtue and inner well-being over material possessions and the relentless pursuit of external pleasures. Simplicity and frugality are concepts intertwined with the Stoic central idea of living self-sufficiently and in harmony with nature. For the Stoics, true happiness is not found in wealth, status, or material possessions, but in living in accordance with reason and virtue. Simplicity is seen as a way to eliminate unnecessary desires, which often lead to dissatisfaction and pain, while frugality reflects the ability to be content with what is essential, without excess. Stoic principles and practices of simplicity and frugality. Detachment from material possessions. One of the main teachings of Stoicism is that external things are indifferent, they are neither good nor bad, and true value lies in our attitude toward them. Seneca, for instance, taught that while we may have material possessions, we should be ready to set them aside when necessary. This capacity for detachment helps maintain peace of mind, regardless of external circumstances. Control of desires. Stoicism suggests that we should develop strict self-control to avoid being dominated by desires and impulses. This is a way of living frugally, as it limits needs and consumption to the minimum necessary for survival and well-being. Nature as a model. The Stoics believe that nature is a guide for living a virtuous life. It teaches that simplicity is a natural state and that living in harmony with it means embracing a simpler life aligned with what is essential. Exercises for reflection and meditation. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, often reflected on the transience of life and the importance of not clinging to material things. He practiced the exercise of imagining the loss of material possessions as a way to train the mind to remain serene in the face of difficulties. Living according to reason. Reason is seen as the human faculty that allows us to distinguish right from wrong and act ethically. The Stoics believed that a virtuous life was a rational life, where decisions are made based on collective well-being and moral integrity, rather than momentary pleasure or material gain. Reducing expectations. One of the pillars of Stoic thought is the principle of reducing expectations to avoid disappointment. This implies accepting reality as it is, without creating fantasies or aspirations that lead to an insatiable pursuit of more, a behavior that only increases suffering. Application in everyday life. To apply the idea of living with simplicity and frugality, it is helpful to adopt practices such as material detachment. Regularly evaluate what we own and let go of what is not essential to our well-being. Meditation and mindfulness practices to help focus on what truly matters rather than getting lost in fleeting desires. Conscious consumption planning, making choices that prioritize quality over quantity and involve sustainability and real need. Gratitude practice, appreciating what we already have, instead of living in a constant search for more. Benefits of living with simplicity and frugality. The lifestyle proposed by Stoicism brings numerous benefits, including less stress and anxiety, less concern with material possessions, and more focus on what truly matters helps keep the mind calm. More freedom. Independence from external desires gives a sense of freedom as people become less reliant on external factors for their happiness. Strengthening of virtue. By living with simplicity and frugality, one develops virtues such as temperance, courage, and justice, which are fundamental for well-being. The Stoic philosophy proposes that true happiness lies in living according to reason, with self-sufficiency and in harmony with nature, adopting a life of simplicity and frugality to maintain balance and inner peace. 8. Be self-sufficient. The maxim "be self-sufficient" reflects one of the central principles of Stoicism, a philosophy that seeks inner peace and emotional freedom through the mastery of the mind and acceptance of things we cannot control. In Stoicism, self-sufficiency is considered an essential virtue because it emphasizes emotional independence and the ability to find contentment within oneself, without relying on external circumstances or the validation of others. For the Stoics, true happiness and well-being come from a mind that is self-sufficient, meaning it does not depend on external factors like wealth, status, or the approval of others. The philosophy teaches that while external things are uncontrollable and subject to chance, what truly matters is how we react to them. Being self-sufficient means cultivating a state of mind that is not disturbed by fortune or the events of the outside world. The Stoics believed that the pursuit of virtues, wisdom, courage, justice, and self-control is the path to achieving self-sufficiency. These principles are intrinsic and can be practiced regardless of external conditions. When a person develops these virtues, they become less prone to being affected by adversity, as their peace of mind does not depend on what happens outside of themselves. The practice of self-sufficiency. To achieve self-sufficiency, the Stoics recommended several important practices. Daily reflection, examining the day and the actions taken, considering whether they were aligned with the principles of virtue. Distinguishing between what is and isn't controllable, understanding the difference between what is within our control, our actions, choices, and attitudes, and what is not, external circumstances, the actions of others. Acceptance of nature and destiny, recognizing that, in a world governed by the logos, universal reason, everything happens for a reason, and accepting this is fundamental for inner peace. Training resilience, facing difficulties with a mind prepared to endure and learn from them, cultivating an attitude of gratitude and learning. Epictetus, one of the most famous Stoic philosophers, emphasized that it is not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them. He taught that the mind should be trained to react with rationality, not uncontrolled emotion, and that self-sufficiency is achieved through mental training and detachment. Seneca also spoke about the importance of being self-sufficient. True freedom is to be able to live according to reason, without being disturbed by desires dependent on external factors. For him, the development of self-sufficiency is the path to a fulfilling life free of suffering. In daily life, applying this wisdom means learning to deal with frustrations, seeking internal solutions to challenges, and avoiding dependence on things that may be fleeting or beyond our control. It may involve practices such as meditation, reading philosophical works, reflecting on what is truly essential for happiness, and creating a living environment that fosters inner peace. Self-sufficiency, as understood by Stoicism, leads to a life of greater serenity and satisfaction, as it reduces suffering caused by unpredictable external changes and the constant pursuit of approval or recognition. People who practice this virtue tend to be more resilient, confident, and able to handle life's ups and downs with balance. Be self-sufficient, in the context of Stoicism, is an invitation to cultivate emotional independence and internal mastery, being the source of our own happiness. It means practicing virtue, staying centered in reason, and finding joy in things within our control. It is a reminder that true peace comes from within and that the search for it is a path that can only be walked by those who master themselves and accept life as it is. 9. Practice virtue as an end in itself. The phrase practice virtue as an end in itself reflects one of the fundamental principles of Stoicism, a practical philosophy that seeks inner peace and harmony with reason. For the Stoics, virtue is the highest good, the only thing that truly matters and must be pursued for its own inherent value, not for any external benefits or consequences it may bring. Let's explore this concept more deeply in light of Stoic wisdom. In Stoicism, virtue is understood as the expression of reason and human nature. It is seen as the only thing that is truly good and, therefore, should be sought for its own sake. The Stoics believed that everything external, such as wealth, social status, pleasure, and even health, is indifferent, that is, they may be desirable, but they are not inherently good or bad. What truly matters is the character of the individual, which is reflected in their virtuous actions. Practicing virtue as an end in itself implies acting according to principles such as wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance, regardless of the consequences. For example, a Stoic should act justly not because they expect recognition or reward, but because it is the right thing to do. Similarly, they should act courageously not to show bravery, but because facing challenges and adversities is an expression of inner strength and virtuous character. Stoicism teaches that true freedom comes from the practice of virtue, for by focusing on one's own actions and decisions, the individual liberates themselves from the influence of external factors. The pursuit of recognition, status, or wealth is a type of slavery, for happiness and peace are always shaped by things beyond the individual's control. On the other hand, the Stoic who practices virtue finds true freedom, which is independence from external things and mastery over their own responses and attitudes. The Stoics, such as Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius, argued that the practice of virtue is an ongoing effort and requires discipline and self-examination. In his writings, Marcus Aurelius, for example, reminded himself of the importance of acting with integrity, being honest, and maintaining an unwavering spirit in the face of difficulties. For him, a virtuous life is a life in harmony with universal reason and nature, leading to true happiness and peace of mind. In practice, this means striving to do good, acting with compassion, being honest, maintaining self-control, and treating others with respect and dignity, regardless of how these actions are received or rewarded. For example, even in situations where injustice seems to prevail, the Stoic will not compromise their principles for temporary gain or to avoid pain. Practicing virtue as an end in itself also leads to inner transformation. When one acts virtuously, the mind becomes clearer, empathy grows, and anxiety diminishes. Over time, this practice leads to a state of serenity and contentment. The Stoics believed that, even in the face of adversity and the unpredictability of life, the true good lies in having a strong and unshakable character, something that only continuous practice of virtue can provide. Practice virtue as an end in itself is an invitation to live according to the highest principles of human nature. It is not the pursuit of external rewards that gives life meaning, but integrity, reason, and just actions. In the end, genuine happiness is found when we are true to ourselves and seek good for its own sake, not for any other reason. In a world where materialism and distractions are common, Stoicism reminds us of the importance of focusing on what truly matters, our character and the virtues we cultivate. 10. Consider the impermanence of all things. Consider the impermanence of all things is a central principle in Stoic philosophy that reflects the understanding that everything in the universe is in constant change and nothing is permanent. This perspective aligns with the idea that the nature of life is transient, and we must be aware of this nature to live more fully and wisely. Stoicism, a philosophy that originated in ancient Greece and was developed by philosophers such as Epictetus, Seneca, and Marcus Aurelius, teaches that the world is governed by a natural order called logos, which is in continuous transformation. Impermanence is seen as a fundamental characteristic of reality, and Stoics believe that resistance to this change is the root of human suffering. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most famous Stoic philosophers and Roman emperor, wrote in his Meditations that everything that is born must die, and everything that is great must decay. He reminds us that the circumstances of life, whether good or bad, are not permanent. This understanding helps us maintain perspective and not become overly attached to things, people, or situations. One of the main teachings of Stoicism is the importance of accepting reality as it is, including the transience of all things. Stoics believe that we should focus only on what is under our control and accept what is not. This acceptance does not mean passivity but rather a serene understanding that the natural flow of life includes both birth and death, joy and loss. Epictetus, another great Stoic thinker, said, "It is not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them." This implies that by accepting impermanence, we can avoid the unnecessary suffering that arises from attachment and resistance to change. Instead of despairing over losses or worrying about life's volatility, Stoics suggest we should cultivate a calm and resilient mind, knowing that nothing is fixed and everything is part of a natural cycle. Stoics emphasize the importance of living in the present moment, understanding that the past is gone and the future is uncertain. Considering impermanence leads us to value the present more intensely, as it is the only reality we can experience. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not over external events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This idea teaches us to focus on our response to change rather than trying to control the uncontrollable. Detachment, a fundamental concept in Stoicism, does not mean that we should renounce all pleasures or emotional connections, but that we should maintain a perspective that recognizes that all things, whether good or bad, are temporary. Detachment allows us to maintain inner peace, regardless of external circumstances. Seneca, one of the leading Stoic philosophers, said, "Wealth consists much more in the pleasure of possessing it than in the possession itself." He reminds us that true well-being is not found in the things we own, but in our ability to maintain serenity regardless of fortune. To apply Stoic wisdom on impermanence, it is essential to practice daily reflection. This can be done by taking time to consider the events of the day and acknowledging their transience. Additionally, it is important to cultivate gratitude for everything we have and to find joy in small things, knowing that they can change. Practices such as meditation, journaling, and contemplating the changes in nature can help internalize this principle. According to Stoic philosophy, recognizing impermanence is a path to freedom and inner peace. When we accept that everything is transient, we can live more fully, with less fear of loss and more willingness to embrace each moment with gratitude. Ultimately, Stoicism teaches us that by understanding and accepting impermanence, we can transcend suffering and achieve a form of lasting happiness, grounded in resilience and wisdom. These Stoic teachings are incredibly powerful and have timeless relevance. They remind us of the importance of focusing on what truly matters and having control over ourselves, rather than being carried away by external circumstances and uncontrolled emotions. Here is my perspective on these principles, reflecting on how they can be applied in our modern lives. Distinguish between what you can and cannot control. This is one of the most liberating principles of Stoicism. In a world where we are constantly exposed to external factors that seem beyond our control, from economic crises to other people's opinions, learning to differentiate what is within our control and what is not can transform the way we live. Focusing on our actions and reactions, rather than on circumstances, gives us a sense of empowerment that can improve our mental health and help us better deal with challenges. Accept what cannot be changed. Accepting what we cannot change does not mean resignation, but rather a form of emotional intelligence. Resisting inevitable events only leads to suffering. Embracing acceptance helps release energy that can be better used for what truly matters, our response and adaptation. Value the present. Modern society, with its endless demands and pressures, often makes us live in a constant pursuit of a better future while the present goes unnoticed. Stoicism, by emphasizing the value of the present moment, teaches us to find joy and satisfaction in the small things of everyday life and to be more grateful for what we already have. This practice can increase our resilience and help reduce anxiety. Use reason to manage emotions. This principle is essential for developing emotional intelligence. Reason is our greatest ally in discerning between impulsive reactions and conscious decisions. By applying reason, we can act more balanced, avoiding actions that could harm us in the long run. This approach also fosters empathy, as by understanding the root of our own emotions, we can be more understanding of others' emotions. Practice apatheia, indifference. Apatheia, or emotional freedom, is a fascinating concept. It does not mean the absence of feelings, but rather the ability not to be dominated by them. The idea of maintaining a balanced mind regardless of circumstances is a significant challenge, but it is something that leads to true inner peace. With practice, we can face stressful and conflictual situations more calmly and rationally. Visualize adversity, premeditatio malorum. Anticipating difficulties may seem like a negative thought, but it is actually a powerful tool for mental preparation. The practice of premeditatio malorum allows us to be ready to face challenges with greater calm and resilience. It's like training our minds to react appropriately, making adversity less intimidating and more manageable. Live with simplicity and frugality. We live in an age of consumption and a constant quest for more things, more status, more recognition. Stoicism teaches us that true happiness does not come from accumulation but from valuing and finding satisfaction in what we already have. This does not mean we should renounce everything, but rather reevaluate what truly brings value to our lives and seek balance. Be self-sufficient. Stoicism values emotional independence, which is essential for peace of mind. Our happiness should not depend on external factors or the approval of others. When we are self-sufficient, we can maintain inner peace amid life's turbulence, being more centered and confident in ourselves. Practice virtue as an end in itself. The Stoics believed that virtue is the highest good and that living according to it is the path to true happiness. In a society that often values material success and fame, remembering that integrity, wisdom, courage, and justice are the true riches is an important reminder. This focus on principles can guide our actions ethically and satisfactorily, regardless of external rewards. Consider the impermanence of all things. This may be one of the deepest and most transformative teachings. Impermanence helps us understand that everything, both good and bad, is temporary. This can help us feel gratitude in good times and find strength in difficult moments. Accepting life's transience allows us to live more fully and with less fear of losing what we already have. In my opinion, the principles of Stoicism offer a path to a more balanced and fulfilling life. They teach us to be more aware of our thoughts and actions, to respond with greater wisdom to challenges, and to find inner peace in a world that often seems chaotic and unpredictable. It is a practical philosophy that, when applied consistently, can help us live more virtuously, resiliently, and with a greater sense of well-being.